without further ado, so I am not enough is huge. And whether you're consciously aware that that belief is kind of a barrier to what you're wanting to create in your life or not, I can actually tell you that it's the number one negative belief that all human beings carry to some extent. Now, obviously it varies from person to person, but if you recognise that you have struggled with that in a dialogue from time to time, it might have been a critic going, I can't do that. If I do that, I'm just going to mess it up. I can't do it. I just haven't got X, Y, and Z. Or maybe you've just had loads of self-doubt and you become really self-conscious of like what other people might think of you if you do something, because inwardly there's a sense that you don't feel good enough to even begin to have a go. If this is relevant to you and you can relate to it, just drop an emoji into the chat box. Let me know whether this is speaking to you, because if it is, you're going to get a lot out of tonight. Now, we'll start with a little story. When I was a little girl, a very, very little girl, only 3 years old, I had this wonderful little tea party birthday with my little friends, with little jam sandwiches, jelly, ice cream. You know, it was a typical was it in the 80s? No, it was in the, oh my God, it was in the 70s. Now I'm showing my age. In the late 70s, hence late. It was my 3rd birthday, and it was a typical of that era type of birthday. It was all done at home, on the cheap, but you know, you're 3 years old and you think it's magical and wonderful. And my dad's there doing games with us, and it's all really brilliant. And then suddenly, bang, it stopped out of nowhere. I am 3 years old, and as much as my parents would never have done anything to like try and upset me or disturb that party, they were forced into bringing it to a sharp end. Why? Because my little sister, who is 3 years to the day, decided to be born on my birthday. Now, I'm only 3. I can't comprehend that this is going to end up being a good thing. But in that moment, at that time, it feels like my whole world has gone crumbling down. So what happens to me in that moment? Well, like, I haven't got the vocabulary to express how I feel, and I don't really understand feelings at that age. But instantly, there's a sense of something better has come along and I'm now second best. Now, obviously, on paper, that was totally not true. Hi, Vicky. It was complete and utter jibber jabber. But because I was so little, and because I had that experience, what I did is I decompartmentalised it, pushed it away, and got on with playing in the moment, which is what most kids do, which is fine. But then I started to grow up, as we all do, and I started to have different types of experiences. And, you know, we go to school, and for me, you know, I was like really into my sports, and I was like I loved school. I was like usually getting told off for chatting, things like that. But if a girlfriend fell out with me, which they tended to, because remember when you had that little best friend when you're younger, you'd fall out with them every 5 minutes, I would be devastated, like utterly heartbroken that my friendship was over. Of course, 5 minutes later, it would probably be back on and absolutely fine. But in that moment, it would really upset me. And every time this happened, a little bit added into my, if you like, shadow part of myself that has kept saying, it's because you're not enough. You're not enough. It's because you're the problem. And again, I'm only little. I'm only like 6, 7, 8 years old. And so again, I don't have the vocabulary to express what's going on. And of course, the next moment happens and it's forgotten about, and it's just literally shoved down to be added to the other experiences that I've had. And then we go to secondary school, and oh my gosh, well, you know, we know the jam there. Hormones kick in, we start to physically change, and suddenly everything's different. Our minds start to kick in. We become self-conscious. We become aware that we really want to fit in with the crowd. And so we want and need things. We've got to have it. And then our mum says no. And as soon as she says no, there's a sense that we're not going to fit in anymore. And therefore we can't be enough. And this continues on and on and on. We have our first relationship, which goes belly up, and we feel like it's because we're not pretty enough or handsome enough, or we don't have enough, we're not intelligent enough, whatever it may be. And then we finish school and we find the love of our life and we fall in love with them, and then suddenly something catastrophic happens. They find somebody else and leave you, or it just comes tumbling down due to poor communication. Perhaps you just feel like you're not enough for them, and therefore they've got to go out every night and be with their friends, and you feel insecure. And ultimately, everything always in this story points back to one person, and that is ourselves. And so no wonder by the time we get to being an adult, we're a bundle of shivering wrecks, because we've all had, I mean, that was my story. Yours will have different content, but the same outcome. We've all had these minor and large experiences that equal to us feeling like we're not enough. And so we become these young adults, and now suddenly we are filtering our life experience through this expression of feeling that we simply cannot be enough for the people in our lives. So then we start to manifest and create protection behaviours. Maybe we don't say things that we really want to say. Perhaps we hold back on just wanting to take an action and go and try something new because we believe that if we do, we'll fail. Perhaps it is that we feel that we can't apply for that job because, my gosh, what happens if I get turned down, or that I'm not qualified enough, or people won't think I'm enough? And suddenly we cut our opportunities off. This goes on and on and on until we get to a point where it's in the pit of our stomach and we start to sense and realise that we've been given this beautiful experience called life, and yet we're struggling. We're focused on what we haven't got rather than what we have got. We are experiencing self-doubt consistently, and actually we're putting up with things in our lives that we simply shouldn't. Boundaries have gone. They have dissolved because we feel we aren't enough to put them in place. And enough is enough. And it comes to a point where either we get this moment of awareness and believe and recognise we need to do something about it, or the choice is taken away from us and something happens where maybe you're taken advantage of. Perhaps you actually miss out on that opportunity because you haven't stepped up, and you start to now realise that this is physically, emotionally, mentally and spiritually affecting you. And then you see a little post off me saying how to learn how to be enough. And you think, I know what? I need to watch that. Right. Well, if that's you, you're in the right place. But I also want you to recognise that you're not on your own. And this is 100% solvable. But there is actions to be taken. And action takers are the ones who change their lives. I lead people to water every single day of my life. I share tools, I share insights, I share testimonials, customer journeys, results. I show people step by step what to do. But does everybody take it up and put it into place? Nope. Why? Not because they're bad people, not because they're lazy, but because something fundamental gets in the way. And that is our egoic mind. It's back to the mind yet again. I don't think there's any kind of struggle in our life where the mind is not involved at some point of the journey. What does the egoic mind do? It starts to tell you that you've got more important things to do. It starts to distract you in saying you've tried all this stuff before and it's never worked. What's the point? It will tell you, honestly, so many white lies, and often we're not even consciously aware of what it's telling us, what it's saying, but we're already buying into it and taking up the actions and responses to it. So part and parcel of learning to be enough is also coming back a step or two and recognising what happens just before you realise that your life is compromised due to potentially behaviours that are not even from this time or even era. They may be behaviours that have started way back when you were 3 years old, like I was. And why is that true? Because your unconscious mind, as amazing as it is literally like a store cupboard. And it stores everything. I mean, it's very good at it, and it stores it very methodically, and it's all there. Don't worry, it's all there. But because its job and role is to be like the perfect servant to your conscious mind, which is the part of your mind, the only 5% of your mind, your thinking part, it's a great servant, and it will do as it's told when the conscious mind says, just a minute, we are enough. We can do this new job. Just a minute, we are enough, and we're not going to put up with this in our lives anymore. We're going to break away from this toxic relationship. We're going to put these boundaries in at work. We're going to clear our desk. We are going to take actions. And all this stuff is really, really good. And I totally believe you that you mean it when you say it. The problem that happens though is that you say it, your unconscious mind kicks in, and it, like a wonderful serving servant, goes all the way through your unconscious mind to find any evidence to support this new way of being. Hi Marion, good to see you here. So it goes through all your unconscious mind, through every single file, and identifies anything to do with this new way of being. So it now finds a big chest with loads of stuff in it called I am not enough. Unfortunately, what it finds absolutely contradicts what you're trying to create. You're trying to create the belief that I am enough, and meanwhile in your unconscious mind there's a treasure chest of I'm not enoughs. From the third birthday party to the breakup of your first boyfriend, to feeling like you're not enough when you fell out with your friend at school, to not making the netball team, to being told that you can't go to the school party. Whatever it may be, there's a chest. There's a chest there, and it is rammed full of I'm not enough. Why is that a problem? Because your unconscious mind is an obedient slave to your conscious mind, but it's also 30,000 times more powerful. So if it finds something that contradicts your conscious mind, it will immediately write over it and take over and sabotage the very thing you're trying to do. Meanwhile, this leaves you in a conundrum, in a place of how will I ever change my life? Because I try with my willpower to make these positive changes, and bang, something happens that self-sabotages me. Well, the answer is this. The answer is you can't make any change at the surface level of mind. You can't make lasting healing or change at the surface level, which is the thinking part, which is the part that wants to create a new belief. All change, all healing happens in the unconscious mind, at the unconscious level of the mind. And if you want to shift your vibration and your belief system and the way that you feel about being enough, then we have to dive deep into the unconscious mind. Marion, that's so sweet. Lovely to see you. I've missed you too, lady. I've missed you too. I've sent you an email today, actually. You'll have to go and have a look at it. So we are going to go on a little journey right now of diving into what you can do to be able to take some small actions to be able to reshift your relationship to this experience of not being enough. Now, after my journey of creating all these things in my life that made me feel like I was not enough, I went on a big soul searching journey. Most of you probably know this by now if you've been following me on social media. Part of my journey was that I came across these wonderful Shire monks back in the early start of the, what was it, 2009, 10, something like that, 2010. They crossed my path initially. And I remember the first time that I spoke to one, and it was this sense that they had something that I wanted, and I didn't know what it was, but they had something, and it resonated, and it was very magnetic and very alluring, if you like. I now know what that was, which was they were fully anchored in the present moment. They weren't going off worrying about future stuff that hasn't happened yet, and they definitely weren't going back ruminating over things that haven't worked out. They were absolutely anchored in the moment. They weren't worried about being enough or not enough. And they, no doubt, are also human, have had experiences which will have meant that they were felt sometimes that they're not enough. But they weren't giving it any energy. They weren't giving it any power whatsoever. And so I kind of got drew to them, and I went and did this meditation course, which led me to going to their head centre at the top of a Spanish mountain in Spain, where I took my children and we lived there, and I studied with these Ashayan monks for many years on and off, and eventually I actually became an Ashayan myself. Along this journey of training, of doing a lot of inward work, I did a lot of inward healing, a lot of training, and a lot of self inner work on a daily basis. I still do, but like at that point through the training, it was intense, it was long hours, I was immersed in it. I really was living, breathing, eating it. And one of the first things I remember them teaching me was about the belief I'm not enough. And it was instant. As soon as they spoke about it, it was like, it is the number one negative belief that all human beings hold, and we actually start creating this negative belief often from being very, 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 very small. Because after this 9 months, sorry, it's my son trying to ring me. After this 9 months of being in the womb, where we've got water, we've got food, we've got love, we've got everything on tap, we're now born to wait. And again, this empowers and inspires the belief of not being enough. So we grow up, we create this barrier, we go trying to do things, and it kicks in. So what the heck can we do? Right, simple. Not being enough is basically built up of 4 parts. And the first part is the belief, so the negative belief. A belief is nothing more than a program. So we've programmed, we've downloaded an idea, usually under the age of 7 years old. Between 2 and 7 is where 90% of our belief system is created. I mean, in the Bible it says, show me a boy before the age of 7 and I'll tell you, I'm going to paraphrase this. Show me a boy before the age of 7 and I will tell you the man he'll become. That's paraphrased. What that actually means is, by knowing a child from up to 7 years old, seeing how they are, you can dictate pretty much how they'll grow up and become, because actually the majority of their programs, their belief systems, have now been downloaded. Now, don't get me wrong, not all belief systems are bad. We haven't just had default problem ones downloaded. We've had a lot of good ones that have kept us alive and made us strong and loving and caring and all that jazz. But some of them, questionable. So this program then gets put into our unconscious mind, which we then filter through. Our problem as adults is we never, ever, ever, ever declutter. Most people go through their whole entire life never doing a spring clean of their unconscious mind. And oh my gosh, it's like carrying like a whole heap of junk around. There is stuff in there that just simply A, isn't true, and B, it's so outdated, it's just laughable. But we don't take the time to audit. And so therefore, it's still affecting us as an adult of 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. But because we're not being aware of this, we haven't realised, and therefore what we try to do is generally, not everybody, but generally, when we don't feel good, our natural response is to push it away and try and fix ourselves by finding something on the outside of us, maybe a glass of wine or two, perhaps too much chocolate, or maybe overeating, spending too much money, gambling, gaming. Look, the list goes on, you get it. We do things to distract the way we're feeling so that we don't have to deal with the intensity. Now, we've all done it, and it doesn't make us a bad person. It's just being part of the process to be able to deal with this stuff. So what do we actually need to really do? We actually need to do an audit. We need to do an unconscious mind audit to be able to do a decluttering of what doesn't serve us. And yes, we keep the good stuff, but no, once we identify the stuff that doesn't serve us, like I don't feel enough and it's actually hindering me from taking this new job role on because I believe I'm not enough and therefore I can't do it, when actually the person that's gone for the job is no different to you. They are humans. They have a mind and a body like you, but they are not buying into the belief that I can't do it. They may not know how to do it yet, but they've got a belief system that'll go, I'm just going to give it my best shot and I'm going to go for it. And the difference is energetically, vibrationally, you don't even need to say where you're at. It will transfer to the person who's interviewing you without you even batting an eyelid that you don't believe in yourself. Why? Because we're vibrational beings and we pick up communication through many sources, and one of them through energy. And that doesn't make us a hippie. It just makes us human. Right, I'm going to read this. That's so true. I have negative thoughts that come back every day and I can't get rid of them. They're draining. Yeah, Jade. And you know what? The negative thoughts that keep coming back, you'll notice that they're repetitive. You'll notice that they're familiar. And you'll notice that you've thought them many times before. Did you know that 70% of what we think of the day before, we'll think of the next day? So it's like we become a stuck record. Like we're doing the same thing day in, day out. And this is where I just love Einstein's work, because he said the definition of insanity is repeating the same behaviour and expecting a different result. This was me, so I'm not going to say that anybody else is wrong, but for years I kept doing the same thing, and I was like, why am I feeling less stressed? Why is my anxiety not going away? Why am I now getting panic attacks? And it was because all I was doing was I was perpetuating and feeding and just repeating the same stuff, same shit, different day. Basically, you know? Give me an emoji if you can relate to this. And actually, it sent me bonkers, really, because I just think I was trying so hard to try and fix myself when the problem was not the problem. The problem was the fact that I was repeating stuff that didn't serve what I was trying to get away from and needed to do something different. Now, the good news is that doing that something different I can tell you right now, is doing an audit of your unconscious mind and just literally spring cleaning and getting rid of those negative beliefs that don't serve you anymore, like I'm not enough. So one of the ways you can do that is I'm going to give some tips now. Now I get it. This is what I do for a job every day. I make it sound so easy, and I know it's not necessarily, nothing's necessarily easy in the beginning, right? Everything I teach is not difficult, but it is different. And when it's different, it's sometimes not comfortable at the start, which then makes it not easy. You can do it on your own, but you can also reach out and get support and help. One of the things that I do in my coaching program is the first thing I do is it's called a life map. And basically it's something I've designed that literally is an unconscious mind audit. We dive in, we identify, and we remove. And consequently, people get huge. I mean, I take people that haven't slept for years, who like wake up every morning with a cloud of doom. It's just become normal. They're anxious before they've even got out of bed. They are overthinking about work. They're dreading the meeting. They hate standing up and speaking because they feel like everyone's judging them. They're scared of saying stuff or speaking their truth because Jeremy in the corner has once said something awful and it's kept them really small. To literally growing this new internal power where they let go of that barrier, they dissolve that limiting belief and suddenly become in their own. They're able to speak their truth. Why? Because they feel clear and they feel energized. It's very tiring living from a place of constant negativity. I mean, Jade's was put, yeah, it's awful, especially when they come back and intrusive. All right. So intrusive thoughts are a whole other thing. Intrusive thoughts, what you need to know, Jade, just for a little bit of space here, is, so thoughts are automatic. So that means they are not, you haven't made them arrive. They're not because you are that bad person, and they 100% are gobbledygook and are not reflective of who you are as a person. I know some of when I was really stressed, and back years ago when I was really suffering with anxiety, I was like, if someone could actually hear my mind, I think I might get arrested. It is like the stuff that was coming up, I felt cringed out by thinking such weird, toxic, obscure, like just awful things. But what you need to know is intrusive thoughts are automatic. They come on with stress. They're not reflective of you as a person. So the best thing to do with intrusive thought is absolutely 100% ignore the content. Ignore the content and deal with not the thoughts, because the thoughts are on top of the water like the boat. The problem is not the boat, it's what's going on underneath. It's what's going on underneath the water that needs dealing, which is back to the unconscious mind. That's the part that always is where you need to do the healing. And honestly, negative suppressed emotions and stress, stuck stress, which is basically all stuck stresses, is when we've gone through something traumatic and we've not had the chance or the ability to finish the process. What happens is we suppress it into our unconscious mind and it just gets stored there. But of course it can't live there because it's not its home, so it tries to come up and get out. Hi, Michelle. And as it tries to come up and get out, it starts to manifest as physical, mental symptoms like anxiety, poor sleep, intrusive thoughts, over worrying, migraines, tension in your neck and shoulders. There's an array of things, literally an array. One sec. So, hi Michelle, so good to see you here. So anyway, let me get back onto this. Where's my thread? So, limiting beliefs live in the unconscious mind, and 100% they need auditing. And if we don't audit them, what ends up happening is they create emotions that most people don't have any control over, because they don't know how to deal with the negative emotions. They don't know how to deal with it. And if you don't deal with your emotions will 100% deal with you. And I'm sure that all of you can relate to that. I'm sure that all of you have gone from something kind of not feeling that good to suddenly you've spiraled so out of control that you're starting to now have, like, I don't know, thoughts of even suicide, even though you might not do anything. It's like, oh my God, have I got this bad that I'm now thinking that it should be best to leave? Now, of course, all that is intrusive and it's not you. It's an energetic experience that's spiraled out of control. But when we address the unconscious mind and we start to dissolve this unprocessed stress and we address the limiting beliefs, then bish, bash, bosh, guess what? Everything changes. Because if you think of a tree with its branches, all the branches are the different things that are going on that we feel that are problems in our life. We've got a problem at work, we've got intrusive thoughts, we've got anxiety in the morning, we've got I don't like myself, I'm not enough, I feel inadequate, we've got I really need to put better boundaries up but I don't know how, I've got my partner's taking the mickey out of me and not helping, or I'm not in a relationship and I want to be in one. They're the branches, and what we tend to try and do is fix each individual branch and get nowhere fast. No wonder. It's like 10 lifetimes worth of work. But if we go straight to the root of the tree and we water the root of the tree, every branch flourishes. Every branch gets dealt with. And that's what happens when we work with the unconscious mind. When we dive into the unconscious mind, every branch gets sorted. And that is where healing happens. It can't happen any other way. It will drive you bananas. And you can take it from me, because I've tried it. I've tried to heal myself by addressing each and every individual branch and feeling more and more and more frustrated and more let down about life, and then becoming a victim about life, and then thinking that it's not fair and everything was out there. So we deal with that at the front. So first thing is belief. Second part of not feeling enough is self-talk, the inner critic. You know the inner critic. It's a beast, right? But as I said before, and I was saying to Jade, the inner critic can turn into intrusive thoughts. You must recognise that thoughts are not facts and they're automatic, so they're not up to you. And the best thing to do with an inner critic that's out of control is stop and ask your inner critic and go, would I speak to my best friend like this? Would I speak to my mum or my dad like this? And if the answer is no, okay, if the answer is no, then you walk away in your head, that is, from those intrusive thoughts, and you pick your attention up and you redirect it and put it on something different, because you are worth being spoken to in a good way. And if your inner critic is on one and won't speak to you in a good way, then you must give it no attention. Because as soon as you don't put any attention on those thoughts, you will notice they go. The reason why they get bigger and bigger and bigger is because we give it too much attention. So we've got self-talk, we've got negative beliefs, we've got external factors. So we can't be responsible for like what happens in life to us, and sometimes life is unfair, and quite honestly, it's not ideal. You know, sometimes things happen that are just simply not ideal. But we all know that we have no control over what is served in life. We know that, right? It could start snowing in two minutes' time. You know, have no control over that. That just would be what is being presented. Now, where people tend to go wrong is they try to fix that. They try to like go against the actual problem of like something gets served up in life, they don't like it, and they try to resist it and push it away. I don't like the fact that my partner's just ended my relationship and I want to stay in it, so I'm going to try my best to keep hold of him, and I'm going to do whatever it takes, even if that means me acting and behaving in a way that doesn't serve me or doesn't make me feel good, because I so desperately want to have that person. It's like the worst thing we can do, right? It's the worst thing we can do because we've got no control over it. What we have complete control over is where we need to put our attention. And the only thing we have control over in life, the only thing we have control over is the meaning we give things. So we break up with a partner. It's not ideal. You feel like it's the love of your life. Your heart's broken. Instead of lowering your energy and your being into a small box and trying to become something you believe he wants or she wants, which I can guarantee is not, instead you change your relationship to it and you say, this is not ideal. However, his loss, her loss, I am going to go and live my life, and I'm going to vibrationally attract the right person. And you know what? Maybe it's been great and I've learned some good things from it, and I'm going to just be thankful for what we've had. But actually, looking at it on paper, I really want more. I really want more out of life. As soon as you change your perspective to things, as soon as you change your meaning to things, everything changes chemically within you. This, right, this mind and body is just a pharmacist. We're just one big walking chemical. And we are the pharmacist. We have the key to letting go of certain hormones into our bloodstream so that we either feel alive and alert, stressed, or happy and great. And actually, in order to be able to trigger any of those, it's very easy, and it's also very easy to turn them off. And science proves now that we can shift our vibrational state in 90 seconds. That's a minute and a half of your life. A minute and a half of your life, you can go from a big breakup, feeling devastated. If you so wanted to, you could shift the chemical reaction within your mind and body in 1 minute and 30 seconds. I mean, that's powerful, right? Now, you might not want to, because you might want to process certain stuff, but let's say you've just found yourself falling into a bit of a victim mode over feeling like you're not enough. In that moment, you get that moment of awareness. Just a minute, Kirsty said, I can't change the circumstances. I can't change the fact that right now there's a friend who's turned up who, you know, is really upset and needs my attention. And actually, I was about to go on this date. But, you know, I can't change the circumstances. So I'm going to change my relationship to it. You know what? Perhaps this guy girl that was going to meet me, I'm going to be really transparent, really honest, and I'm going to support my friend for half an hour, and I'm just going to put it off by an hour. And perhaps that very thing that you do is the very thing that makes that person fall in love with you. You don't know. You don't know. Because they see that you're compassionate and that you're caring and you're supportive and you're loving to your friend. You have no idea. Being transparent and being in that stance of, and really remembering that you have way more power than you give yourself credit for. And when you start to be authentic in that and start to hone in it and go, do you know what? I can't change this circumstance, but I can change the meaning I've put on it. It changes everything vibrationally. And in that moment, you know what? By that very small act, you start to feel good. You start to feel good. You've been of service. You can never be in service, and service means helping somebody, and be in lack at the same time. When you're in a state of giving, when you're in a state of supporting, when you're in a place of like making a difference for someone else by holding that space for them for that 10 minutes, that half an hour, whatever it might be, it is impossible to also be in a place of I'm not enough. It's impossible. You can't be in fear and lack and be in service. Service is a place of unconditional love, right? Unconditional love is the true essence of who you are. Lack, all that crap, is actually just a fear. And fear is nothing more than false evidence appearing real. It's not even real. It feels real because you've got this emotion that's going to you, but it's not. It's not, okay? What's really going on is you've got this stuck emotion that's going back to the unconscious mind that wants to be freed. It wants to go. It wants to go, but you haven't either had the ability or knowing how to let it go, or you're a masochist. And we've all been masochists. We've all been, I mean, oh, look at me. I couldn't find my hair clips, so I've had to use a pencil to put my hair up. Yeah. So basically, the answer to that is get more pencils. There we go. So the answer to this is that if you are feeling really like, oh, it's not fair, and I really wanted to do this, and now this has ruined it. Silver lining. Stop. Take a breath. You can't change. You can't change it. So what can you change? And that is the meaning you give it. So this has happened. Okay. So I'm going to act and do whatever I need for it. But let's see what unfolds off the back of it. How exciting. And then the last one is expectations. And we are all guilty of this. We're all guilty of having so when my kids were little, I've got 3 sons who are now 21, 20 and 18. So we're talking a while ago. I left their father when they were really little. So they were 3, 2 and 8 and 6 months old. So they were very small. And I used to have like these, I already had hang-ups about being a single mum and believing that I wasn't enough. Because I was a single mum and they should have 2 parents and I wasn't meant to be like this, and you know, in the fairy tales it doesn't look like this, and where's my Prince Charming and blah, you know, all that rubbish. Anyway, I have worked through all this stuff now, and I've had absolutely no hang-ups over it at all, and they've grown up into incredible individuals. So, you know, it was a big piece of rubbish that I bought into. Anyway, this one day I wanted to take them out for a picnic. And so I packed the car up, you know, spent ages going to Tesco's, got the bread, got the sandwiches, made everything up. Beautiful day, got the rug, got this, got that, blah, 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 blah. All ready. Drove like half an hour to get to this beautiful location with running stream. All very, very beautiful. And bish, bash, bosh, got there. Immediately, one of them fell headfirst into the water with all his clothes on. The other one started fighting with the other one. And I just was like, this is not the romantic idea that I had in my head. We were meant to be all hanging out and being really this wonderful, beautiful day together with a picnic. And at the time I was really upset. I was really upset because it had taken me ages to pull everything together. It cost me some money and time and effort, and everything was on me because they were only little, and it was wrecked. Or so I believed. It was wrecked because it didn't fit my expectation. I had this ridiculous expectation of some fairy tale story afternoon out and about in the sunshine with my 3 sons. And very quickly, I didn't learn off that first event, I have to tell you. It took me a few times, but very quickly I started to see and realise that the pressure was only being put on by one person only, and that was me. I had this unrealistic, actually, idea of how 3 very small boys, they're only like, I mean, they're so close in age. I mean, they just basically beat each other up as they grew up. That's what boys, rough and tumble. They weren't beating each other up, but they were rough and tumble. That's just how it was. And I had this idea that they were just going to sit down and we'd go for a paddle and we'd eat the sandwiches and we'd be laughing, and yeah, it wasn't like that. So expectation is a biggie. And the moment that I learned to let go of expectation to actually anything that I was doing, it's not about not having an intention. You can have an intention or an outcome. Hi, Cara, of like what you believe it can look like. That's absolutely fine. But to have an expectation that this is how it should be will only lead to one thing, and that is disaster. And the disaster will always lead you to believing that you're not enough, right? So letting go of expectation to outcome is massive. So what we're going to do then, these are the 4 aspects. We've got limiting beliefs, we've got self-talk, we've got external factors, and we've got expectations. Well, the first thing is we've got to learn to face our fears head on. When we believe we're not enough, the first thing that we should do is stop and take a breath and ask ourselves, when did this belief start? When did it start? This belief, let's say you're about to apply for a new job. Let's say you are doing something out of your comfort zone. Maybe you've been asked to do a talk. Perhaps you've been asked to do, I don't know, a wedding. You've been asked to like speak and in front of everybody. And it's something that, you know, you'd love to do, you'd love to think you could do, but you feel so nervous and sick to your stomach for doing it. To the point that you just go, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I can't do it. It's like it gets the better of you. The fear gets the better of you. At that point, when something like this kicks in, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what is it that I need to do? What is it when did this actual belief that I'm not enough to be able to have a go at this start? And just track it back, get paper and pen and find out. You will probably find out that it wasn't last week or the week before or even the week before that. It probably has gone back to being either a small child, a young teenager, or a young adult, or a combination of it all. And yet, you're still filtering your yes and no's through this experience. So as soon as you've identified it, the next step is, as I said before, fear is nothing more than false evidence appearing real. It's an illusion. It's not real. It's in our heads. It's a belief that we buy into, that we believe is true, because we believe that thing that happened to us at 3 years old is the reason why at 23 years old we daren't stand up for our best friend and do a 2-minute speech in front of all our family on the wedding day. When actually it is because of what happened to us when we were younger. So we stop and we address fear by heading it straight on. And the best way to do it is ask ourselves, what's the worst thing that can happen? What's the best thing that can happen? What resources do I need in order for this to happen? Who do I need to call? Who do I need to ask? Can I get help? Can I get support? Is there other people that could do it with me? And by going through all these different elements, what you'll start to realise is that you can do this. And maybe it's you do it with a bunch of your friends. Maybe it's that you pre-record something and you just press play. Maybe there's a million gazillion ways that you can overcome and face this fear and yet not feel so vulnerable as to just stand up right now and do something that's out of your comfort zone. So fear, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real, must always be headed on in order to be able to develop and shift and change your relationship to feeling enough. Number 1. Number 2, become accountable. Right, when I was going through my worst part of my life, when I was at my lowest ebb, accountability and I didn't hang out at all, because I just wanted to blame everything in my life for the reason why I wouldn't step up to do something new. The reason why I couldn't do it. You don't know what it's like. I'm a single mum with 3 boys, you know. Do you know how hard it is for me? Oh, yeah, I was professional. So at that point, what I didn't realise was those very statements were the things that were keeping me trapped in my experience. I didn't know it. I wasn't aware enough at that point, unfortunately. It was part of my journey, part of where I was at. And so it kept me almost trapped in an experience that I hated. I hated feeling like I was an invalid almost. I wasn't enough, that I couldn't do it. And so part of this journey is recognising where you do it, if you do it, and we're all guilty of it from time to time. So this is not about you being a bad person because you do it. It's about recognising it, becoming aware. And 2, once you do, is just literally changing your dialogue. to the statement, I'm going to make myself accountable. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm going to make myself accountable so that I can live a better version of my life. And that's all it takes. That's all it takes, is recognize it, acknowledge it, and put in the new statement. There's nothing more to do at that point. That's all you do. And then step 3 is you now need to, now you've identified where you might be holding back, is about taking one small step into the future that is going to progress you. So what's progression? Progression is something where we get better at something. And honestly, it could be that you decide that you want to learn how to do a headstand, a yoga headstand, and it's going to take you 6 weeks to learn how to do it, but every day you can do 30 seconds, and it's going to be added on by 15 seconds every day, and in 30 days or whatever it takes, six weeks, you'll be on your head for 5 minutes. I just made that up, but you get the deal. So progression is where you find a goal, something. It doesn't have to be like I'm off to the moon. It can be something very simple, but something that's just personal to you that you've always wanted to have a go at. Doesn't cost money, doesn't cost like getting other people involved. It's just something personal to you. It could be reading a certain book. It could be starting to do sea swimming or cold water immersion showers. It might be that you decide that you're going to balance your hormones out by every morning taking like what's that vinegar called? I can't remember now, but the vinegar stuff that balances your insulin. It might be that you decide that you want to get fit and you're going to do so many sit-ups every day. It's doing something that you progress in, that only you know that you're doing, but it makes you feel good. And if you look back at anything in life, the times that you feel most fulfilled and happy is when you are progressing in something in your life, whether it's your relationship, whether it's yourself, relationship with self, your fitness. Check it out, honestly. And then step 4 of this is you need a plan. You need a plan to identify that stuff in your unconscious mind, to be able to do a clear out. And I created this system called the life map, and it's literally where I take my clients, I love it. We go on a journey and we go round the houses and dive deep into the unconscious mind to identify, hi Toby, to identify anything that's self-sabotaging. So that's a belief like I'm not enough. It's also unprocessed past stress that hasn't completed its cycle from usually past events and traumas that you've just muddled through. And it's also negative emotion that's literally just stuck. It's just stuck. It's got stuck in your unconscious mind and it needs letting go of. And we do this through this life mapping process. If this is something you are interested in doing, the audit is we audit the unconscious mind, we identify it, and then we dissolve and get rid. Once that's gone, the results are you start to, first of all, get energy back. That's the number one thing that starts to happen to all clients. They feel more energized. Clarity starts to regain. Why? Because when you're living through toxicity, and I'm on about toxicity being the negative beliefs, being the belief I'm not enough, battling with things like the energy of negative emotions, is tiring. It's tiring. Honestly, it really is. And at the end of this, what you end up being is back to your old self. So you're clear, you've got more energy, and you starting to do things that serve you. So you'll find that naturally things like you're able to say no with ease and less guilt. You're able to implement things that you want to have a go at. You're able to progress in things. You know what? You're able to just go and be in a circumstance situation and just feel confident and good about yourself. So if that's you, you can message me the word life map and we can talk more about it. In the meantime, if you want to just have a go at the steps that I've just said, that will lead you to that point.